When you think of ramen, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For me, it's that steaming bowl of rich broth, those perfectly chewy noodles. It just feels like a dish that's been at the heart of Japanese culture forever, right? Well, get ready because we're about to uncover a history that is probably not what you expect. So, I think a lot of us, especially outside of Japan, just assume ramen is this ancient soul food. A recipe that's been passed down for centuries, kind of like soba or udon. It just seems so fundamental, so deeply a part of tradition. But is that what really happened? Yeah, you're gonna want to think again on that one. The truth is, the ramen that we all know and absolutely love is surprisingly new. Its story doesn't start in some ancient feudal past, but in the bustling, fast-changing world of the early 1900s. Okay, so to find ramen's real roots, we have to start with its ancestor. And honestly, it was a Chinese noodle dish that showed up in Japan and, well, let's just say it didn't exactly get a warm welcome. But first, what actually makes a ramen noodle a ramen noodle? It all comes down to this one key ingredient, kansui. It's this special alkaline water that gets mixed with the flour. This is what gives the noodles that signature yellowish color, that amazing springy texture, and that unique taste. It's totally different from any other Japanese noodle. So let's go back in time. Japan opens its ports to the world in the late 1800s and a wave of Chinese culture comes in. One of the things that came along was this noodle soup, often called nankin soba. We've even found newspaper ads for it from way back in 1884. This was the dish that would one day become a ramen, but it was a long way from what we eat today. So why wasn't it a smash hit from day one? Well, it was all about the taste. Traditional Japanese broths, as you can see here, were light, they were subtle, built on these really familiar flavors of fish and seaweed. But this early Chinese version, it was often really rich, kind of oily, with a super strong pork flavor that was just totally alien to most Japanese people back then. And this is where the story gets really good. The dish needed a total makeover if it was going to survive. It needed an adaptation. And believe it or not, that entire revolution started at a single restaurant in Tokyo. So in 1910, this restaurant called Raw Riken opens up in Tokyo. And as the director of the Shin Yokohama Ramen Museum himself says, this is the place. This is where modern ramen was born. They weren't just serving an old recipe. No, they were completely reinventing it for a brand new audience. So how did they do it? It was a three-part stroke of genius. First, they totally changed the broth, making it lighter by blending pork and chicken stock. Second, and this was the real game changer, they seasoned it with soy sauce or shoyu, a flavor every single person in Japan knew and loved. And finally, they standardized the toppings that we now think of as the absolute classics. This was the blueprint for success. And you might be asking, was it a hit? Oh, you have no idea. At its absolute peak, Raw Raken was serving around 3,000 customers every single day. That is just a mind-blowing number. They didn't just make a new dish. They created an absolute sensation. So, Razen Raken created the perfect recipe in Tokyo. But how did that one restaurant's success story turn into a nationwide craze? Well, that's our next chapter, all about how this amazing recipe hit the road. Even the name ramen has this really fun little origin story. For a while, the dish was called shinasoba, but the name ramen might have been born in a restaurant up in Sapporo in 1922. The story goes that the Chinese chef would yell out "hola" when an order was ready. They just combined that la sound with men, which means noodles, and boom, ramen was born. But the biggest reason ramen spread across Japan was, tragically, a disaster. As you can see on this timeline, just a year after the name was maybe coined, the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 completely devastated Tokyo. In the chaos that followed, so many chefs lost their jobs. So they moved, fanning out across the country and taking Raw Riken's incredibly popular ramen recipe with them. This is how all the amazing, unique, regional styles of ramen we know today first got started. So ramen went from a Tokyo trend to a national dish. But its final transformation happened in the years after World War II. This is when it really became the ultimate comfort food, the soul food we think of it as today. You have to imagine what it was like in Japan in those difficult post-war years. Ramen was basically the perfect food. It was cheap, it was filling, and it was so satisfying. Little street stalls called yatai started popping up everywhere, serving these affordable, hearty bowls to everybody. And with all those stalls, you got fierce competition, which led to incredible innovation. This was the moment ramen was truly cemented in the hearts of the Japanese people. So if there's one thing to take away, it's this. Ramen's history isn't about some ancient, unchanging tradition. Not at all. It's an incredible story of immigration, of brilliant adaptation, and nonstop innovation. It started as an unpopular foreign dish, got a genius redesign to fit local tastes, and then spread across the country through both tragedy and necessity. And now, it's a global icon. Which really just leaves us with one question. What will ramen adapt to next?